Hey everyone, welcome to Ex-Fundie Diaries. My name is Elly, my pronouns are they, she, and this is a Q&A video. Thank you so much to everyone who asked questions. I'm sorry it's taken me a little while to get to this video. Thank you very much for your patience. I'm gonna start with a fun one. I got excited for this question. It says, what is your favorite movie/TV show now that you are of the world, LOL? Also, fave bands/musicians/songs. Okay, so I'm not a huge movie person. I've noticed in the last 5 years or so, I've gotten way more into TV shows, and I really haven't gotten that much into movies. There are, of course, exceptions when exciting things come up. I'm recording this on the day of the premiere of the live-action Little Mermaid, and I'm totally taking my daughter to that, and we're very excited. So, movies come up that I get excited about, but for the most part, mostly a TV person. If I were to list all of the TV shows that I have loved after being of the world, it would take way too long. So I've narrowed it down to a few that I've been into recently. On Hulu lately, I have been very into Abbott Elementary and Home Economics. I am eagerly awaiting both of those shows to return. And then on Netflix, I have been very into Sex Education. I'm sure that's a surprise to no one. A very good fuck purity culture show. And Never Have I Ever. I am obsessed with Never Have I Ever. I know it's a little cheesy at times, but I absolutely adore that show. I love the actors, the storytelling. I think it's so smart and so creative. It's such a good mix of funny, but also so thoughtful and heartfelt. Yeah, my only big complaint about the show is just that the actor they chose to play Paxton is 30, I think, and he looks like he's 30. So that's really my only complaint. I mean, he's cute, he's a great actor, but he doesn't, I don't believe that he's a high schooler for even a second. So it kind of takes me out of the story a little bit, but yeah, truly, that's my one complaint. Otherwise, I love it. And, I think growing up being homeschooled through high school and really, really wishing that I could have gone to real high school, I really like a lot of shows that tell the story of high schoolers. I think a big part of that, is because of that feeling of having missed out. And I think a lot of the questions that these characters ask themselves, questions of identity and belonging and self-worth, I'm asking those questions as a 32-year-old, so I relate in that way. And then also, I guess another one I wanted to mention is I've been watching Queer Eye with my daughter. We've been really into that lately, and we're each into different parts of the show. I really like the home makeover part and the culture part, like the part where Karamo talks to the person about their goals and their interpersonal drama and how they want to improve their life. And then my daughter's really into the fashion and the cooking. And so there's something for each of us, and then we often will discuss things as they come up. It's been a really great conversation starter between us, and yeah, we've just been really enjoying that. In terms of music, lately I've been very into Lizzo, Lennon Stella, Jessie Reyez, and Ravina. In terms of favorite songs, I have actually, this was a couple years ago actually, I put together a Fuck Purity Culture playlist, and I've actually been wanting to share it on this channel, and I could never figure out a good way to work it in there. So I just decided to mention it in my answer to this question, and I will put a link to it down below if anyone would like to check it out. Those are some of my favorite songs, and each of them, to me, is like a slightly different aspect of that message of fuck purity culture. One more song that came to mind that is one of my favorites for sure is by Len and Stella, one of the artists that I mentioned. It's called Older Than I Am, and as a parentified oldest kid, I really love that song and feel it at such a deep level, and I think maybe some other fellow parentified kids will also relate, or even just anyone who feels like they had to grow up too fast or feels like they're holding a lot of the weight of their family on their shoulders. Next question, what is something that brings you joy in your day-to-day life right now? I have been getting more connected to my local queer community. That has been giving me a lot of joy and just making me feel so much more seen, understood, surrounded by love and acceptance, and validated. And so I guess in that way I've also been connecting more deeply to myself as well through that process. So I'm really grateful for that. Also, I know my upstairs neighbors are walking around a lot, so I apologize for the noise if you hear that. Many of your videos address your past, but how are you doing now? Mentally, emotionally, spiritually? Where are you at now, and how do you feel about it? And I guess there's so many different directions I could go with this question. I think the things that come to mind the most is that I think I am really focused on not being so dualistic. Obviously, growing up in fundamentalism, it's extremely dualistic. It's very all or nothing in every single aspect of life. And I don't know, I think life is really complicated and there's a lot of nuance to so many things. I think that's something that I've been learning, and it's helping me be kinder to myself. Especially like when I look at my progress, progress of like where I feel like I should be, whatever that means, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and just being able to hold two things together that are both true, Yes, I'm struggling with this, or yes, I've got some attachment issues, and look how far I've come. Look at the way that, I'm able to sit with uncomfortable emotions, or whatever it is that, these two things can both be true. I think I've been growing in my relationship to myself and my self-worth. I think though it is still a struggle and will probably continue to be for maybe my whole life, I think I'm starting to just have so much more compassion for myself. And I think I'm learning that I am worthy. And yes, there's still self-hate that I struggle with, but I think there's a part of myself that is developing the ability to help the other parts of myself through those intense feelings and those times where I'm overwhelmed with self-hatred and feelings of unworthiness. I've noticed that I talk to myself a lot, especially like in the car when I'm driving, or when I'm by myself in my apartment. I am just talking myself through my big feelings. I think maybe a good word for it would be reparenting. I think I've been doing a lot of reparenting. I feel like I can honestly use the word healing for the first time. I think the last time I would have used the word healing would be in a very different context. It would be in like a very lofty, like, oh, Jesus has healed me sort of thing. And now I look at it more as like, my trauma responses are a little less frequent and a little less intense. Or, I'm able to regulate my nervous system a little faster. Things like that. I actually have a new therapist, and that has been really awesome so far. My last therapist is close to retirement, and we had actually been talking for a while about me getting a new therapist who is queer. And so my new therapist is queer and non-binary, and working with them so far has been awesome. And I think it's been helping facilitate a lot of growth for me. Okay, the next one is, would you ever consider doing a collab with Reverend Jen from Fundie Fridays? And a lot of people have asked me this, actually. And I didn't start this channel with the purpose of collaborating with other creators, but there is a handful of creators that I would collab with in a heartbeat if they asked me. And Reverend Jen obviously is at the top of that list. So the answer is yes, a wholehearted yes, absolutely. I actually think that it would be pretty cool to talk with Jen about Above Rubies. As far as I know, they've never done an Above Rubies video, and I'm so curious about their thoughts on that cult, because it's wild. And it was a huge part of my upbringing. Also, just talking to Jen in general would be super cool, because they're obviously an amazing, awesome person that I respect and admire very much. The next question is, are you enjoying your new job, and do you have any favorite animal stories from work? I hope you are doing well. Thank you, I appreciate that. So for anyone who doesn't know, I have been a vet receptionist for I think about 9 months now, and there are definitely aspects that I really love about it. I just don't get tired of dogs, ever. I'm gonna really miss it because I actually have to pivot to a different job. And to be honest, it's because I don't get paid enough. I really need to make more money and to have benefits, and I have to have a schedule that's sort of more traditionally 9 to 5 in order to pick my daughter up from after school care on time. Yeah, I'm so grateful that I have tried this job, and if I could find a way to stay in vet med and still make enough money to, be able to take care of myself and my daughter, along with my co-parent, but we are separated, and moving forward with, our different lives. Sorry, it's a little awkward to talk about because it's still new. And I did look into transitioning from vet receptionist to vet tech or vet assistant, and I would absolutely love to do that if I could. All the vet techs at my job, I'm just like, I admire them so much, and I appreciate all of their hard work and everything they do, and I really wish that they all got paid more. They should. I actually have watched quite a few YouTube videos about vet med, specifically vet techs, and they all say that it's a very underpaid position. It's a very underfunded field just in general. And so really the only way that I would be able to make as much as I need to make for the cost of living where I live is if I were to become an RVT, registered vet technician. But the program's really expensive. It doesn't take too long. It's only about like a year and a half or so, which is awesome. But I just can't do it with my daughter's school schedule. There's like weird hours with the classes, and there's like the clinical rotations, and I just can't make it work right now. So maybe someday, but I will say I'm very good at the receptionist part of the job, being able to multitask and be really organized and, you know, thrive in a fast-paced environment, a chaotic, fast-paced environment. Oof, it gets chaotic in the lobby with angry customers and upset pets. I've thought about this a lot. Like, I think that actually probably the toxic positivity that I was raised with probably really, you know, primed me for being great at customer service. I wonder about that for other people as well. Anyone who's watching who works in customer service and who feels like they're really good at it, and you grew up either fundamentalist or evangelical, please let me know if you think that there's a connection there, because I feel like there is, and I wish there was like a study on it or something. So I don't know exactly what I'm gonna do going forward, but in the next couple of months I am gonna need to make a shift. And I think at the very least I would like to find some kind of volunteering that I could do in a shelter, or maybe like doing some dog walking on the side, something that would keep a lot of furry friends in my life, specifically dogs, would be really awesome, because I don't want to lose that aspect of it when I have to pivot to a different job. The next question is, do you still journal, and have you ever thought about writing a book? So two questions in one. Yes, I do still journal. I would say I fill up about one journal a year, which it might sound like a lot if you're not really a journaler, but you know, growing up it was like more like 4 a year. So I journal less, and I would say I also probably journal in a different way now. There are some times where I will journal about what's going on in my life, or, you know, things that I'm struggling with, wondering about, feelings I'm having. But I also make a lot of lists these days. Sometimes it's things I'm grateful for, sometimes it's things I'm feeling overwhelmed by, sometimes it's like goals, plans, even to-do lists sometimes make their way into my journal. You know, journaling was such a coping skill and a survival mechanism for me when I was a kid and a teenager, so I think it's a good thing that I'm only filling up one journal a year now, because it shows that obviously I'm in a very different place in life. I'm not constantly going through new trauma every day. And the other question, have I ever thought about writing a book? Yes, I've actually written a book before. It was a memoir that I've been thinking about and working on off and on for years, probably about 8 years. I actually did finish the rough draft of an entire memoir. I think it was at the end of 2019. I think I would want to rewrite most of it, but that is something I would still like to do. I just don't have the time or energy to do it right now. So I'm hoping that sometime in the future I will pick that back up. But yes, I would really love to write a book about, I think a lot of it would be focused on my family dynamics and my relationship with my parents. Definitely some of it would be related to, you know, growing up Fundie, because obviously that permeated every part of my life. But I think that there are certain things about my experiences with my parents growing up and my relationships with them that I really don't feel comfortable sharing in video form. And I think writing would give me the space to be brutally honest about those things. And definitely writing that first draft of a memoir, like, accomplished that. I still had to give myself permission over and over again to be as brutally honest as I was being. Because even when I was just writing by myself in a room, I still had the impulse to protect my parents and not bring shame to them by telling the truth about what they said and did. But yeah, I would just remind myself, no one has read this yet. Like, just be super honest and you can decide later what you want to change or take out. So yeah, it's on my bucket list to finish that memoir and hopefully share it with the world someday. I'll keep you updated. If I ever do finish it, I'm sure that this channel will be one of the first to know. So thank you for your interest and stay tuned. Don't stay too tuned because it'll probably be far in the future. The next one is, what percentage of the chaos in your childhood do you attribute to your fundamentalist upbringing, and what percentage do you attribute to your parents' personalities / possible untreated mental illnesses? I love this question. Thank you so much for asking. This is something I've been thinking about over the last year or so, quite a lot. I don't know if I could give an exact percentage to each of those categories, but what I can say is that it absolutely was not just one or the other. Even if my parents had raised us secularly with no religion, they still would have been abusive, in my opinion, and my family still would have been very dysfunctional, very toxic, very unstable. And I do think that there was probably a lot of undiagnosed mental illness going on with both of my parents. I also think some of it was their unprocessed and unacknowledged trauma, or sometimes it was acknowledged, but it was just, explained away with Christianity. So I guess that's where some of the fundamentalism comes in. But, with my mom especially, she would acknowledge horrible things that had happened to her in childhood. And then she would just, have a nice spiritual platitude over it to say that, she's set free from that because, by his stripes we are healed. With my dad, I don't know if I'll ever understand my dad, honestly. He is an enigma to me. With my mom, it's so easy for me to point to the things that contributed to making her who she is, and also the things that drew her to fundamentalism. But with my dad, I don't know. At times he was just so cruel, manipulative, and violent in every sense of the word. And yet he was also quite charismatic. He could be fun. He's a mystery to me. He's a very complicated person. And from what I have learned from family members on his side of the family, it started for him in childhood. Like, there were some very concerning behaviors that he was exhibiting. That's why, with my mom, I'm 100% sure that she believed and believes in Jesus 1,000%. Like, to this day, Jesus is her best friend. He is her savior. Like, her relationship to him is very, very, very real to her. And I completely believe that she believes all of it. With my dad, I don't know. I often wonder if fundamentalism was just a convenient way to control his wife and children. I think that Christian fundamentalism is set up to be abusive. Absolutely. I mean, in a cis-het Fundie marriage, it's gonna be abusive in a gender-related way. Even if, like, the husband is a really kind-hearted person, if he's following fundamentalism, he's gonna be abusive, in my opinion. I don't know if that's a controversial take, but... And then, like, pretty much all Fundies believe in hitting their kids to discipline and using fear-based tactics in parenting. So yeah, definitely think that the fundamentalism was a big part of it. But again, even if we didn't have Christian fundamentalism in our upbringing, even if we had no religion at all, I still believe that my parents would have been abusive and that our family structure would have been very dysfunctional and unstable. Like, there were specific aspects to my home life that didn't really have anything to do with Christian fundamentalism. It was just abusive. Yeah, that's something that I've had to really sit with and think about, because I can't just point to the fundamentalism and say, that's the problem in my upbringing. The Fundie stuff was just in addition to what was already gonna happen. And unfortunately, in the worst way possible, those two aspects just really complemented each other very well. Yes, we were Fundie, and that in and of itself was abusive. And my parents had their own shit going on apart from fundamentalism. And I think that my childhood would have been abusive and unstable with or without the Fundie of it all. Okay, last question, and I saved this one for last because I anticipated rambling quite a bit about it. So I wanted to give myself plenty of time at the end to just go on and on and on. And that is, how has it been for you to start to define and describe your gender for yourself? Do you find yourself utterly confused and paralyzed by gender norms? Oh, gender. Yes, confused, absolutely. And just frustrated by the whole concept of gender. I don't even know where to start. It's been kind of all over the place. Lately, I've been feeling a bit more gender fluid because some days I feel pretty happy and content with genderqueer. Other days, I will feel like more of one or the other end of the gender binary, where like some days I'm like, maybe I am a woman and I'm just making all of this up. And then other days I'm like, maybe I'm a man and I'm just totally in denial about all of it. Sometimes I'll just be doing something random and I'll be like, why do I feel like a man right now? That's so weird. I'm not doing anything different out of my ordinary day. Or like, wait, I just thought of myself as a woman. Why did that happen? Why did that thought pop into my head? But then, after I give myself a minute to recover from those jarring thoughts, when I really think about it, I'm like, oh, right, nope, I am just a human. I'm just a person at my core. And I think the long and short of it is that gender is not for me. That's how I feel about it. And I think something that's been really validating for me lately is reminding myself that as a teenager, I prayed for gender to disappear. I have always been averse to gender and especially gender roles, so much so that I just wished that it didn't have to be there, that it could disappear, and that me and my peers could just be people. Even though I wouldn't have been able to articulate it exactly in that way, it just felt like this thing that was separating people and causing people to have to live in different ways. It felt so limiting and like so much pressure. It felt confusing. And it continues to as an adult with a completely different perspective and more language to describe things. So sometimes I'm like, well, maybe I'm agender. Maybe that would be like the most accurate label for me. I should look up the definition of agender. Agender is not having a gender or a lack of a gender. Agender people see themselves as neither a man nor a woman or both. They are gender neutral and often are described as gender free or genderless. Maybe the core of who I am is like pretty agender, but as I've described in past videos when I've talked about this, my assigned gender and my positionality has been and continues to be a huge part of my life. I'm like at a loss for words to how to say it in a different way than I've said it before. It's just, I can't even imagine my life without that experience because it just would have been so vastly different. I would be a different person. So because of that, for me personally, agender doesn't feel quite right because for me, it just doesn't fully encapsulate all of the experiences that I have had and continue to have. And so that's why I do loop back around to genderqueer, because the longer that time goes on, the more and more I identify with the word queer. And I just think queerness is a big part of my sexuality and gender. But also, you know, non-binary is a nice umbrella term. And I definitely know that I don't identify with the binary in general, or more specifically, either end of the binary. That being said, sometimes non-binary as a label makes me feel a little bit boxed in. And I know that I'm not the one who came up with this. I can't remember exactly where I first heard this, but I know lots of non-binary people have talked about this, where in our society, like, non-binary has become like a third gender, and there are like sometimes expectations that come along with that. And so sometimes I just want to have the freedom to do something or express myself in a certain way or even feel a certain way that is traditionally seen as like more masculine or more feminine, or like that's more aligned with being a man or being a woman. So I think I try to remind myself of that on a regular basis of like, Elly, you can be whoever you want to be. And if that's seen as more masculine or more feminine in this moment, that's okay. You know who you are. You know at your core, you're just a human. You're just a person. Just be yourself. Be authentic. And don't worry so much about the way that other people are going to label you. Especially after I've started to talk more about my gender and my gender journey on YouTube, I have been, you know, getting a healthy dose of hate comments. And you know, I've always gotten plenty of hate comments since starting this channel. I'm fairly used to them by now. I've even written a couple of songs using my hate comments. I haven't shared those yet. I might someday. But yeah, I feel like I have like a pretty good handle on most of the hate comments that I get. But the gender ones are tough for me right now. They're really tough. They just feel, obviously, so personal. And they're often very hateful and very passionate in a bad way. And I think because I still feel so insecure in that aspect of who I am. I feel a lot of imposter syndrome, you know, because of how I present for one, for another, because as of right now, I don't have any physical gender dysphoria, so I don't feel the need to make any physical changes to my body. That and a whole host of other reasons. I feel sometimes, as I've shared before, like I'm not non-binary enough. And even though I reject that concept or that idea, that's still how it often feels. Yeah, I've got a lot to continue to work through and make peace with for myself. But I do want to share another TikTok. This one just really spoke to me. I really loved what this creator had to say about their gender, and I really liked it. And it's, I think, something that I kind of aspire to. So I'm just gonna share the video here.
So my pronouns are they, them, and I need people to understand that I truly don't give a fuck if you use the wrong pronouns most of the times. I'm not gonna correct you, because to me my pronouns are like an approximation. It's language that can never contain all of who I am. So when I say my pronouns are they, them, I'm just letting you know, yo, I would like for you to acknowledge the fact that I'm not a man or a woman, that I exist outside of this binary. But if you don't do that, that's your problem. It's not mine. You cannot misgender me, because my gender is something that is personal and beautiful. Oh my God. The way that the energies flow through me that created whatever the fuck we got going on over here is unique. It's unprecedented. So I'm not mad at you for being confused. I'm not mad at you for getting it wrong, to be honest. But that's not my work to help you fix that. You know? Good luck, baby. Good luck. If I correct you on your pronouns use, which I might sometimes, is most likely, most of the time, is because I care about the space that we're holding together. And I want you to be in right relationship with me as I want to be in right relationship with you. So if I correct you on pronouns, it's because I fuck with you. And I'm just like, yeah, I would like you to stick around. So here's one way that would make me feel a little bit more affirmed when we're together.
I really appreciate that perspective and that approach, that sort of like selective approach of who am I going to share this part of myself with. I'm not going to share it with everyone. And again, this is not prescriptive. I hope that no one else thinks that I'm saying that they need to be like this too. This is just something that I'm very drawn to when I think about navigating the world. That doesn't mean that I'm not going to support and stand up for other people who have a different approach. I want to end this question with a little story. It was something that happened at work a couple months ago. I was asking someone a question and they said, "Yes, sir." I mean, "Yes, ma'am." And I got so much gender euphoria from that moment. The combination of sir and ma'am together gave me a bit of a spring in my step for the rest of my shift. And until we have a gender neutral version of those titles, I will take a sir/ma'am any day. To the commenter specifically who asked me this, thank you for asking. Very thoughtful question. And I just want to wish you all the best in your gender journey as well. I hope that you find peace and happiness and gender euphoria as much as you can, especially after growing up in evangelicalism and Christian fundamentalism. Well, those are all the questions that I was going to answer today. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.